you very much. Thank you, Sam, and everyone for showing up to listen to what is really very early stages in a very long story. So there have been a whole host of my predecessors that have been trying to get this particular project off the ground. It's at least a 20-year story of Cambridge wanting to find a way to get a facility dedicated for children onto the biomedical campus. And I'll tell you a little bit about the background to the sort of services that have arisen, I guess, on the Edinburgh campus for children, the sort of services that I think were compelling enough for us now to make a much stronger case to the government and at least to take first steps in making this a reality. So there's about 10 or 12 slides just to guide you through a bit of context first of all. So we, at the moment, within Edinburgh, have about 60 beds for children. Not an enormous number, given we're a sort of regional hub for specialist services. About 20 of those are generally filled with children from around the region with various different types of cancer, brain tumours, leukemias and so on. And we have a 13-bedded paediatric intensive care unit which cares for the intensively sick children transported into our hospital for intensive care support. Aside from that, in the New Rosie Hospital, there's a pretty large neonatal intensive care unit that is now housed in a sort of state-of-the-art facility with capacity to grow. And the particular problem that has, an additional problem that has contributed to us needing to come up with a solution for children is that the neonatal unit has got much bigger, and therefore we need more paediatric beds to help support the graduates from the neonatal unit that have increasingly come towards Edinburgh and Cambridge. Some of you will be very familiar with the very small space that is available for children in the emergency department. And increasingly, we've had to see more and more children through 6 or 7 cubicles, which is really hopelessly inadequate. You can see that we see 80-odd thousand children in clinics in Edinburgh. Half of those are coming to adult clinics, whether that's ENT, ophthalmology, plastic surgery. So no, there is not enough dedicated space for children in outpatients. So all of these things, I guess over the last 10 years have grown up the services. And this slide, the blue blocks show you what goes on down at Great Ormond Street. At the bottom of the slide, or bottom of the slide, and at Edinburgh, we more or less have all the services that are provided at Great Ormond Street, here next door at Edinburgh, but run in a way that is utterly different to the facilities and opportunities that children have at Great Ormond Street. And our small service is taking children from the 15 or 16 other hospitals around the region. So the specialties that we provide need to service and support and advise paediatric services in 16 or 17 hospitals. And more hospitals to the south of us, because of the congestion in London paediatric services, are looking to send patients north. So there is an enormous amount of pressure on the emergency department, but also on our limited bed space. And that's how paediatric services are chopped up and administered at Edinburgh. You know, there are children being seen in all different types of spaces, whether that's outpatients, whether that's imaging in theatres, all integrated and sort of mixed up. If you walk around Edinburgh as a child, you have to visit many different spaces to have your pathway of care delivered. So, you know, why now for a children's hospital in Cambridge? And there are really a whole host of things that have come together that have made this opportunity, I guess, investable for the government. And what we're wanting to do is deliver a space where we can co-locate all of these various different specialties and get children into areas that are much more age appropriate. And I think the reason that we have managed to do that is principally threefold. So the reason that we've managed to leverage this opportunity is because of the regional pressure. So the middle on the left is about this increasing pressure of specialty services that are coming to us from the region. I think a very unique and incredible opportunity for us is that we want to integrate physical and mental health for children in the same building. So the opportunity of the Ida Darwin site being sold off in 2023. The Ida Darwin site at the moment includes 37 inpatient beds for children with mental health, and that needs to be re-provided. So the opportunity 5 years ago was to simply relocate those inpatient beds on the Fulbourn site in a separate space. But together with Cambridge and Peterborough Foundation Trust, who run the mental health services for children, we feel that the right thing to do is to integrate both physical and mental health in one space. And, you know, just like we manage and look after all of our own children as one entity, we really want to get back to helping each other, mental health and physical health, to come up with, you know, a much better approach to care by co-locating and integrating those two services. And that, of course, is very topical for the government. It's very topical for funders because of the priority on the bad job, to be honest, that we're doing for children and adolescents with mental health. So aiming to provide parity of esteem and parity of treatment and resources to the mental health community. And the final thing, and David Rauch, who is the Professor of Pediatrics now, joined us 2 or 3 years ago from UCSF in California, is leading the sort of genomics approach, the genetic approach to early diagnosis and intervention on behalf of the university. And that has given the university much more skin in the game to focus on children and to support the research and academic ambitions on the biomedical campus. So a regional solution, an opportunity to really provide a unique way of looking after children in a holistic way, and the university developing research. Of course, that's going to cost a lot of money, and I will come back to that right at the end. I wanted to mention this because the university is now able to do something in Cambridge with children who are intensively ill. So the neonatal intensive care unit, the pediatric intensive care unit, we are now able to screen kids with these whole genome scans for early diagnosis of genetic conditions in a way that actually nowhere else in the UK or the world can't do this in 2 weeks. We can do that within the space of 14 days here. So an early diagnosis allowing us to not only repurpose the way we treat infants and sick children, but also allowing us to make a diagnosis without several years of multiple testing and multiple appointments and the uncertainty of what's going on. And there is a big chunk of our practice that is on children who have underlying genetic conditions, who present very early in life. So it's something that for sure we're going to see more of, and I think we are likely to be at the forefront of being able to make progress with that. So where on the Cambridge campus, on the biomedical campus where the Children's Hospital sit, you will see on that corner of Mary Archer Way, right opposite the new Rosie Hospital, is a perfect spot for a children's hospital to be linked in to the maternity and neonatal intensive care unit. And as it happens, that is right adjacent to the mental health site, which is being developed. And I don't know whether you've had someone here from the Forley site development, but it's essentially the university part of the Institute of Mind, or Brain and Mind Medicine. So in terms of academic integration, we're right alongside the University Department of Psychiatry, and I think that would be a very fertile opportunity for us to get together for early diagnosis, not only in physical health, but also mental health. So after much waiting and screaming and shouting and you know, making our case, we eventually were awarded this 100 million, and actually it was 120 million, to towards the building of a children's hospital in this region on the Cambridge campus. And whilst £100 million sounds like a hideous amount of money and a fantastic donation, of course it never is enough to do what you exactly want to. So we certainly have a fantastic opportunity now to go out and make the case to fill that gap, but also to make a credible case for how we can phase development of a much more comprehensive building of a full children's hospital over the coming few years. And this chart really just, I guess the headline or the bottom line is us coming up with a solution that will address most of these problems in the first phase of this building. So the all singing, all dancing, 350 to 400 million pound build, which will future-proof us, fix the Addenbrooke's problems, fix the regional problems, address all of the university ambitions, isn't available right away because we've only got 25% of the money. However, we do feel that it's option 3A and 3B in this, that a halfway house of a phase 1 for around about 200 million is something that will address some regional, some of the regional demand, will certainly improve the access through for our local children who are currently competing for many of those beds that are inhabited by regional children, but also will be a credible fundraising target. And I know 100 million sounds like an impossible target, but Addenbrooke's and Cambridge University, I'm hopeful, have got the sort of supporters that will make that sort of thing possible. I'm not coming here for £100 million, but we're working on that. We're working on some very well to do individuals around the country and around the world. So I think what this slide doesn't, what doesn't jump out from this slide is that this is not going to be a 3 or 4 times the size of what we have now hospital, with 4 times the number of staff, sucking in children and families from all around the region, attracting 4 times the number of staff that we've got at the moment, and creating even more chaos on the campus and in the car parks and in the roads around. So what we are very much wanting this hospital to model is to make it the smallest possible hospital that will provide the biggest amount of care around the region. So the sort of models that we're wanting to go into that new build is a way of digitally and technologically supporting children in their local units, in their homes, and minimising the trips for routine visits, for routine admissions on the Addenbrooke's campus. And you'll see that the bed space, at least in phase 1, we have about 60 beds at the moment, is only going to go on by 10 beds, and that's in 5 years' time. So, my colleagues are telling me it's already too small. But what we need to bring to the development is how do we enable and support children around the region to stay close to their home, to stay close to their home units, and use this as an enabler rather than a sort of giant magnet for families and kids to come to Cambridge. The time frame that we've set ourselves is a pretty tight and, to some people, unrealistic one. We're now in February to May 2019. There's a process in which we have to get increasingly complicated and heavyweight business plans through the Department of Health, through the Treasury. They need to believe that we can raise the money. They need to believe that this is going to be delivering the promises that we set out. But the long and the short of it is we need to submit our final business case, and that will need an enormous amount of work at the beginning of 2021, so 2 years from now, so that people can start building and digging at the end of 2021 to allow us to get in to phase 1 at the end of 2023 and beginning of 2024. In addition to getting the business cases through, we also need to find the money. And as you might imagine, £100 million in 2 years needs a lot of fundraising, or a small number of people with deep pockets. So, what are the implications for the local community? And the implication is absolutely not the £100 million fundraising target. We're already en route with an initial quiet phase of this campaign, talking to alumni from the university, talking to individuals around Cambridge who are well networked and well connected. And that's likely to run for the bulk of the first 2 years. So we're wanting to get to 80 or 90% of the gap to be credible when we put our full business case in, so that we have a small amount of regional and local fundraising left to close however many million that we still need. And I guess at that point, the fundraising opportunity within the East of England will be significant, and we very much want to tie families and local people into that mission. However, long before that, we will be asking patients, families, users, locals, individuals living in Cambridge and using the services of paediatrics to take part in a whole series of engagement workshops in helping us sculpt and prioritise what goes into this building and how we use a building to offer the maximum amount of benefit to the local community, but also to the region. And as you can imagine, there's an enormous number of different work streams that need to be set off to collect this sort of information, to put into a business case that then makes it credible that it's on behalf of the local community, on behalf of the region, not only on behalf of Addenbrooke's and fixing its own particular problems. We've started engaging with the local authority and the council. We were at the Oversight and Scrutiny Committee this week or last week, and were very well received. We obviously have a lot of work now to do on the back of that to engage with families and patients and the local population in understanding how this will impact on their lives. So watch this space. We've only really got underway in getting the project team together. There will be an awful lot of information over the coming 2 or 3 years, and I'm sure me or David will be back to update you as to how that is more likely to impact on you and the QE.
Thank you very much. So my musical assistant is about to bring a roving microphone down into the audience. If anyone has any questions for Rob, please raise your hand.
There seems to be an assumption that it's better to reproduce all these services in another building for a particular age group rather than send people to departments like we do now, but you didn't really say why that was better. I assume you have reasons. But
yeah, so the reason that you don't send a child with 3-year-old with who needs intensive care to adult intensive care, because the skill set is different. And the same thing applies for paediatric gastroenterology, so gut disease. Kids with CF are different to the adults that are looked after in Papworth with cystic fibrosis. So paediatric expertise is something that in any centre of excellence for children anywhere around the world is provided in an age-appropriate space. So anaesthetics for children are given in theatres that are different to anaesthetics that are provided in an adult environment. If you go into an MRI scanner, then if it's appropriately set up, you can get a large number of kids with appropriate play therapy and support to go in without a general anaesthetic. If you're in a cold, sterile, busy MRI department where adults are coming in for hips, knees, strokes, then it's a very different and a much more difficult thing to provide for. So we're very much integrated now with adult services, and a lot of children are using spaces that are not appropriate or suitable for children. So it's really, we don't want to separate out from all of the adult expertise on the campus, but we want to give children, and that is flexible, 14, 16, 18-year-olds, the opportunity of being in a space where real dedication of staff and expertise of clinicians can be focused on their care.
Thank you for coming to talk to us this evening. I noticed that the site for the new children's hospital is currently a big green field, and I wondered firstly what recreational space you might be planning as part of the new hospital, and also whether there's any plans for any educational space so that children can continue, those children who are able to do so, so that they can continue with schoolwork while they're in hospital.
Yes. First of all, the outside space is critical and key, and we want this to be a sort of health supporting space, not only for the kids with physical needs, but actually the Mental Health Trust, in their move from Ida Darwin, which is a sort of calm, peaceful, more relaxing space, onto a busy biomedical campus, is really going to need reassurance that their patient population have calm, quiet spaces. So some of the initial designs, and I haven't brought any sort of architectural mock-ups, are very much around providing calm outside spaces for people to relax and for people to feel that this is not you're not locked up in a sort of high acuity complex hospital setting. In terms of education, we have got great plans to provide not only on-site educational facilities, because a lot of the kids that come to us now don't have illnesses for 2 or 3 days and then go home. A lot of the more complex kids are in for weeks and sometimes months. So we will need to have internal, quality educational support, but also we want to provide health education as part of our digital and sort of educational platform. So there will be a significant chunk of resource that goes towards educating families, educating staff in our sort of regional remit. So it'll be a big part of the priority.
Are Chestnut House and Acorn House included as part of these plans?
Yeah, so the Sick Children's Trust, we've had discussions with them actually just this week, and they're very keen to continue supporting Acorn and Chestnut House, because it's a big part of parental accommodation if your child is in intensive care or an inpatient. But they're also, thankfully, very keen on understanding the challenge of providing additional inpatient space within the hospital. So we're hoping that they're going to work with us to increase the capacity for families to stay.
You said that children currently are being cared for by dedicated paediatric specialists as well as those that have more adult. Are you planning to have more dedicated paediatric specialists? And if so, what is the plan to transition back to adult services in that 16, 17, 18, 19?
Yes. So it's perhaps hard to believe that you can only have 70 beds. Well, we've got 40 neonatal beds there, but there are about 110 paediatric specialists already looking after kids in that space. So we have, there are some specialties that, as you saw, we don't provide at Addenbrooke's, and most notably that's transplant, and it's a bit debatable how that is going to go over the next 20 years with Packworth arriving with their expertise. We don't offer renal medicine because that is quite centralised for children, but again we've got an enormous adult expertise with renal transplant, so that might change. So there may be some additional paediatric specialties that come to the Addenbrooke's campus in due course, but we haven't got plans to make this bigger than we have, at the moment in terms of bed envelope. All of the specialty services now currently already transition teenagers to adult services. So for the regionally complex patients in respiratory, in gastro, in endocrinology, all of those clinics have already got transitional services and transition clinics in place with the adult specialties. We absolutely want, if anything, to pull adult expertise down into the younger ages. So in my specialty, children with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, we have adult surgeons operating on 13, 14, 15-year-olds because they have a greater expertise operating on many more adults with inflammatory bowel disease than our paediatric surgeons do at looking after teenagers with IBD. whereas our paediatric surgeons are very much focused on much younger children. So I think that's one of the unique selling points of being on that campus, is the transitional arrangements that we've got with very close links into the adult services, which are key.
Anyone else? Yes, on the front, Chris, Nikki.
Thank you very much for coming to talk to us. My question is that I assume that you are talking to the rest of the hospital about how you fit into their bigger picture, and the fact that you will obviously, or hopefully, be lessening pressure on some of the departments. I understand that there are already sort of 13 different entities up there, and I assume that you have somebody with a bigger picture, Prime Minister perhaps. And I'm just wondering what their capacity is to come and talk to us and keep us abreast, because the interface between the biomedical campus as a whole and the counsellors and all the rest of us has been pretty sparse.
Yeah, I mean, there is an enormous amount of stuff going on the campus that, to be honest, even I don't have oversight. You know, the NHS part is struggling to find its way through, you know, enormous deficits to try and find ways in which, essentially, to decant parts of the hospital in modules, whether that's cancer or children or movement, you know, that's the way we're trying to find our way through the government funding arrangements, whatever they are. There is a sort of biomedical campus orchestrator, if you like, in CUH partners who are supposedly directing the traffic around the campus and what the developments have. Yeah. And I guess CUHP are the individuals that are trying to broker deals with companies, with the NHS, with different trusts, and they probably are the people who have the best oversight of overall development that's going on. And I guess those guys might give you some broader information.
Tony, would you mind identifying yourself? So that's Tony Taylorson, who is the comms person for CUHP?
Cambridge University Health Partners, yes.
That, and
There you go.
he's also taking on that role for Patworth in a few weeks' time. So if you want to nobble Tony in the break.
The next speaker.
Well, Tony did his stint 2 years ago, wasn't it? Yes, so he's off the hook for a while. But if people want to have a chat with him about how that interface does or doesn't work at the moment, I think that's a really good point. I feel sorry for Rob having to field that question.
Yes, I'm sorry, but I think that's one of the reasons we really appreciate you letting us know what's going on, and I hope it will generate some sympathy for you as you go along and support.
We'll need all sympathy we can get.
Okay, any more questions from the floor? No? Right, we're done.
Great.